Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, welcome into the program. I hope that you're doing well and you are ready for today's show. And by the way, I never take the time to mention this, but I want to thank everyone out there that signs us up to so many newsletters and stuff that's been happening for the past 20 years, 20 plus years, almost 30 years at this point. Actually, is it 30? Yeah, 30 years. Whenever we have our however long email's been around, whenever we have an email, we get so many entries to the Taco Bell fan club and Bed Bath & Beyond coupons. So thank you everyone who's doing the legwork and signing us up live at Computer America. So thank you. But no, everyone, welcome into the program today. I hope that you're doing well. And we have a great show planned for you because it is Friday. And of course, you know what that means. Well, Ralph Bond is joining us, and he is our science and tech trends correspondent. He, of course, has a number of stories, that number being 4, that, are just really, really fun, and you might have missed out because, let's face it, if you're not a heat wave, it's hard to get a headline nowadays. But, ladies and gentlemen, they're all going to be fun, they're all going to be good, and you want to stick around for that. So, computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, past shows, future shows, show notes, articles, videos, reviews, social media links, all that and more. Come out, check out our website. It's the best place to find out what we're up to. And yeah, go ahead and do that. So with that being said, all the usual platitudes, let's go ahead and bring Ralph on. So as always, he joins us every single Friday to talk science and technology trends, which luckily seems to really affect a lot of really cool and interesting fields. So joining it, and of course he's a longtime Computer America contributor. And Ralph, welcome back onto the program. How you doing?
Well, maybe not all of it is roasting. They're either drowning in rain in the northeast or they're roasting down in the southwest. And even here in Oregon, where I am near Portland, Oregon, I think we have never had so many 90-degree days in a calendar year. I think this year is a new record setter. So
yeah, a lot of records.
Climate change. Yeah, don't believe in climate change. You come on up here and I'll show you what it looks like. Anyway, we do have a story today. One of our stories actually will help beat the heat. That's a little tease. We'll get into that later.
That's great. Yeah. I was just at the dog park last week and where I'm at has been thankfully, not too affected by heat waves. But I got to say that, it was on the warmer side, and I don't know if you've ever seen those cloths that you get them wet and they're kind of rubbery kind of material, but they're supposed to evaporate very quickly, and they're for they're like cooling cloths, I guess is a kind of the generic name. Someone at the dog park actually wet one of those and put it around their dog and then put it underneath their harness, so this dog was running around with what looked like a cape, but it was like a cooling cloth, and I thought that was a really fun idea. So if anyone out there has dogs, and with a little bit shorter coat, maybe that would be a good idea to, kind of help them out a little bit.
Yeah, but great idea.
Trust me, no one should take advice from me. But I did want to take a little bit, just a second here out ahead of it, because I saw a news article, we were talking about it before the show, that people were suspecting that their subreddit, if you don't know what Reddit is, good luck, but they were suspecting that a news site was scraping the posts on a subreddit and using AI, prompting the AI. So I'm assuming they took the title, some of the subject of the post, and then told and then told the AI to essentially summarize each post that was being made in the subreddit into a news article for a news site, and it's been picked up by a number of larger publications. So it's pretty well known at this point, who it was and what did it. But Ralph, I just wanted to mention that as time goes on, paying people, man, people don't like to do that. they're like AI powered news articles are going to become more and more common, even if they are, slightly tweaked or slightly overviewed by people. I just want to let everyone know that, because as journalists, it's really kind of our job to kind of sift through it, see what's relevant, see what's kind of fluff, and, deliver, good information to our listeners. And, the quality of writing is going down. It's definitely more accessible, and there's a lot more writing. But of course, that means that the general level of writing is going down. And ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to warn everyone out there that, quality is going to decrease, and you really need to be picky and really scan what you're reading, because you don't know if you might be the first person to actually read what you're reading. So.
Exactly right. Oh, yeah. It's a weird world getting weirder. And you live in a world now where deep fakes. Is this really what somebody said, or is this real, or is it? And it's just going to get worse and worse. I wish there were some kind of honest system where people could say at the front end of any article or video, this was generated by AI, as kind of not a warning exactly, but just a disclosure, right? I mean, I
would not be surprised, because this same conversation has happened before, but it happened with in magazines and printed media when it came to photoshopped images, of like models and stuff like that. Now you have to say, now magazines show models, and they're like, this photo was digitally altered or edited or whatever. So people know that, those models are incredibly attractive and have 18-foot legs, and they're great people, but even they get things photoshopped. So I feel like AI has to kind of come around, and like the legislation around AI has to come to the same point where it has to say, if any part of it has been altered, supported, contributed to by an AI system, then you have to label that somewhere, even if it's just a little footer at the bottom, they have to mention it. But either way, that's a whole social issue that is not really what we're going to talk about. Ralph has picked out 4 very fun articles. Ralph, what is your criteria of picking out articles, and why are we here?
Well, so we're here to end your week on an upbeat note, to give you hope for the future. And that's something we all need so much. And I'm talking about hope and things, robotics, medical technology, sustainable energy technology, transportation advances, space research, physics, all across the board. Ben and I look at these things. I go out and I look for articles that I think that are interesting, that often fly under the news media radar. Like Ben said at the outset, the horrible heat waves we're going through are capturing the headlines. And of course, the war in Ukraine and all these other things, understandably and rightly so, are dominating the news cycle. But what we do is come in with nuggets of hope at the end of each week that I think will give you inspiration, and I hope entertain you. And come out to computeramerica.com, get today's show notes. If you want to dig deeper, we'll have links, pictures, links to videos sometimes, all that good stuff, because we're just going to give you the condensed high points of each article.
Exactly. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into story number 1. And, it's a technology that seems, science fiction. It's always been possible, but never really done. But this is exciting. We're getting closer.
Absolutely. And this all has to do with the evolving world of mini nuclear reactors, as it were. It's related to that. But the headline here is World's Largest Nuclear Fusion Rocket Engine Begins Construction. And I got this from sciencealert.com, wonderful website, story by David Nield. And it's it's kind of a fascinating thing to sort of wrap your head around. It's kind of amazing. But the article says nuclear fusion propulsion technology, has the potential to revolutionize space travel in terms of both speeds and fuel usage. The same kinds of reactions that power the sun could cut the travel time to Mars by half, or make a journey to Saturn and its moons just take 2 years instead of 8. So this is the goal, or this is the motivation. And as the author of the article says, it's incredibly exciting, but not everyone is convinced this is going to work. The tech needs ultra high temperatures and pressures to function. Now, to help prove the viability of this technology, an outfit called Pulsar Fusion in the United Kingdom is building the largest ever fusion rocket engine. And I'm going to stop here for a second, Ben, real quick. Largest ever. So I started doing a search for existing nuclear fusion rocket engines, and I didn't find anything. So I'm not quite sure where the author's going with that particular comment about the largest one ever.
Right.
I think it has more to do with the existence to date of small reactors. Anyway, the chamber of the rocket, some 8 meters, that's 26 feet approximately long, is scheduled to start firing in 2027. Now, they've actually done some experiments already. As you might expect, replicating the nuclear fusion reactions that power the sun and other stars inside a rocket, it's not an easy task, right? And here's the deal. At the center of nuclear fusion propulsion is an ultra-hot plasma locked inside an electromagnetic field, and scientists are continuing to figure out how to do this in a stable and safe way. That's the challenge. And then James Lambert, CFO of Pulsar Fusion, notes, quote, "The difficulty is learning how to hold and confine the super hot plasma with an electromagnetic field. The plasma behaves like a weather system in terms of being incredibly hard to predict using conventional techniques." And I'm going to throw in a qualifier here. What he's really talking about, weather systems like a terrible hurricane or a tornado, where it's often very, very difficult to know where's this thing going. I think especially true with tornadoes. So going on here, according to the team at Pulsar Fusion, machine learning, here's your AI, machine learning could help make this box of wild weather, the plasma in the electromagnetic field, a little more easy to map. And with this in mind, Pulsar Fusion has partnered with Princeton Satellite Systems in the United States, really interesting guys, by the way, to use supercomputer algorithms to better predict how the plasma is likely to behave and how it might be more precisely controlled. Wow. And I mentioned Princeton Satellite Systems, a little side note here, is an aerospace research and development company. They are developing fusion microreactors for space and terrestrial power. That's the heart and soul of this potential rocket, right? Is the mini reactors, which is a big field of interest. As you know, Ben, we've talked about this before with other companies and other technologies. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it's the idea that you have these little generators, and even back on Earth, the idea that your power station could be, the size of like a tractor trailer, but still be able to power an entire city. You can imagine in a disaster setting or just even in everyday things, having that much power on tap that's portable and small, and of course, take it to space. It's really a no-brainer.
Yeah, exactly right. And again, the article goes on to say, if scientists are able to get everything functioning as intended, temperatures of several 100 million degrees will be reached in the chamber of the rocket, making it hotter than the sun. Now, that's something to wrap your head around. The surplus energy released could potentially drive rocket speeds of 500,000 miles per hour. What? Wow. And the particular type of engine that Pulsar Fusion is developing is a direct fusion drive. Of course, the DFD, you have to have condensate, in which the charged particles create a thrust directly rather than converting into electricity. That's kind of interesting. It's more efficient than other options, is powered by atomic isotopes, and doesn't need a huge fuel payload. Those are all the things that make it so attractive for potential long-range space travel. And a little side note, atoms with the same number of protons but different numbers of neutrons are called isotopes. So that's the reference to the atomic isotopes. Fun, interesting. We'll see. What did they say? They want to try to get this thing really going in 2027. 2027. Yeah. So stand by. We'll see. I mean, really, when you think of, kind of what we're doing with rockets, it's amazing we can do what we're already doing. It's essentially filling up your car and launching it into space and, hoping that the engine kind of makes it there. This is what you need to travel the long distance, though. Fuels that'll last, years and years and years instead of, days or weeks. So it's very fun. And really, I mean, the closer that we get to this technology here on Earth, Ralph, because we've talked about cold fusion, being a huge one, and that would solve this problem. But,
fusion in general is going to solve a lot of problems, and of course then enable a lot more opportunities such as this one. So it's the same technology, but it has so many applications, and it's really highlights the trends part, because this isn't just space travel. It's, clean energy. It's, so much more. So there you go.
Yeah. And Ben, I'll say that listeners who are viewers, you're lucky because you got to see the videos that Ben's been showing. But people who are listening to this as a podcast, please come out to computeramerica.com. Again, get the show notes, get the links, because that Pulsar Fusion's website is beautiful. What a beautiful website! Yeah,
they definitely put a lot of good images. They're just testing kind of like the basics, or the basic of rockets that they already have, and they've done tests. It's not like no one's doing nothing. It's not just in their heads. No, they're testing some good stuff. So the videos are definitely fun to watch.
It is.
Sure. So there you go. Story number 1. Story number 2. And I think this is the one that you said that might help people beat the heat. Me and my wife were just left. I think everyone sit down for this. We just left the gym. I know, crazy, right? And I think like most people, we got burns on the back of our thighs. It's just cars get incredibly hot, and it can even be dangerous. Maybe not chicken nugget dangerous, but it can get dangerous. So Ralph, what's story number 2?
Yeah, this one's fun. Headline here is: this thermal cloak keeps spaces from getting either too hot or cold. Subtitled, the prototype fabric could one day help reduce heating and cooling energy costs. This guy got this from sciencenews.org, a story by Skyler Ware. And this is really intriguing. So researchers have created a prototype of a fabric which acts as a thermal cloak, or blanket, or tarp, if you want to call it that keeps the space underneath it from getting too hot or too cold. So it's very versatile. The cloak doesn't require an external power source, which could reduce energy consumption associated with heating and cooling. I just thought this was really cool. In a new study, an engineer at Shanghai Jiaotong University, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and his colleagues made a cloak or fabric using 2 layers. The outer layer is made of white silica fibers that reflect visible light, coated with hexagonal boron nitride, a ceramic material that reflects ultraviolet light and helps dissipate heat. Together, this is curious. It's really curious. Together, the silica fibers and boron nitride reflect 96% of the sunlight that hits the fabric. Keep that in mind, 96%. At the same time, the outer layer absorbs heat from the surrounding area and emits that energy as infrared light, which also lowers the temperature under the cloak through a process called radiative. Am I saying that?
Radiative cooling. Yep.
Thank you. Radiative cooling. The researchers tested the cloak. Oh, this gets fun. The researchers tested the cloak material's durability under several extreme conditions. They baked the fabric to 800 degrees Celsius. That's 1,472 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, just about hot enough to melt table salt. Now, they didn't stop there. The fabric was also subjected to other extreme tests, including they exposed it to extreme cold by dunking it in liquid nitrogen. Wow. Subjected it to the same amount of vibration as a rocket launch, doused it in acid, and blasted it with fire from a butane torch, all with virtually no changes to the material's structure or performance. How about that? So this extreme durability, no surprise, might lend the material for use in spacecraft or extraterrestrial environments, the research team contends. And then to test the fabric in the real world, and that's what the image in the show notes and the article shows you. To test this, the researchers built a full-size prototype cloak or tarp and tested it on an electric car. On a summer day in Shanghai, and I'm sure that was quite warm, the cloak kept the car about 23 degrees Celsius or 73.4 degrees Fahrenheit, up to 8 degrees C or 46.4 Fahrenheit lower than the outside temperature at 28 degrees which at that point was 82.4 degrees outdoor temperature. So again, they would significantly lowered the temperature of the car underneath the cloak. To your point about getting into a hot car, wouldn't this be great? Lower than the inside of an uncloaked car, of course. The cloak also kept the car about 5 degrees C or 41 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the outside air on a winter night. That's its versatility. It's fighting off heat, but also providing heat when you need it. So it's this astonishing materials advance, and there's so much more information in the article. Come out to computeramerica.com. Get those show notes if you want to dig deeper. Fun story.
For sure. And the temperatures, while not like the most extreme, I mean, just the fact that it can cool just by being, a piece of cloth is, very cooling in itself. But I mean, the durability that they've kind of created, clearly they're intending this fabric for something a little bit more than just a car cover or a car reflector. But it's still very, very cool that, they're developing it, and it could have other applications. So I look forward to seeing what they're going to do with that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities. I don't know whether this is something flexible enough to be possibly clothing. You can just imagine all kinds of possibilities for a fabric like this.
Yeah. Yeah. For jerseys and for, kind of sporting wear, I could imagine that, it would be much in demand. But there you go. So thermal cloak, story number 2, story number 3, and high-tech paint. It's not the first. I mean, obviously, beating the heat seems to be a theme for today. And, there's people have a lot of different ways to, kind of cool things, but I think that it's going to be a mixture of all of these people. So it's not like there's going to be that one silver bullet. Although, Ralph, every time I see a story about, more records breaking and, global warming and all that kind of thing, I just keep telling anyone around me, I'm like, it's time for the bubbles. We need the we need the bubbles that you put into space between the Earth and the sun to reduce. I don't know if you remember the article we did a number of months ago, but like every time, like it's like we broke a new record, I'm like, we need the bubbles. Put the bubbles in space. But
we need it,
ladies
all,
and gentlemen.
To your point.
We need all of them. So story number 3 would complement story number 2 very well. What is this?
Yeah. This is a fun story. The headline here is "This high-tech paint could cool the world." Story I picked up first at Popular Mechanics, a story by Jackie Appel. And again, we have the links and images and everything for you in the show notes. Now, one thing I want to mention that I thought was very interesting as I dug into this, and is that this outfit, this research team, reported this as early as April of 2021. But this past week, for some reason, it got a lot of widespread media attention. I'm still not quite sure why.
It happens.
Because maybe it's because this technology is starting to be deployed, although that wasn't really clearly pointed out. But anyway, even the Today Show on NBC did a segment on this just a few days ago. So here's the story. And it is still, regardless, it's still a great story and very, very interesting, and another nugget of hope for the future. So a team of researchers from Purdue University has developed the whitest paint on Earth, which reflects 98% of sunlight back out into space. 98%. Wow. Reflecting a full 98% of sunlight can really have an impact, according to their press release. It can keep surfaces 8 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than the air during the day and 19 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than the air at night. Wow. And according to the New York Times, they also looked at this. It can reduce the air conditioning needs of a building by up to 40% if painted on the roof. Wow. Reflecting the light, keeping cool, and saving energy, of course, but 40%. Now, thanks to the way it's engineered, it will also not blind someone with eye-burning glare. That was one of the first things. In fact, when I was describing this to my wife, she said, "Oh my God, you'd have to wear sunglasses all the time." No. The paint has a very high concentration of barium sulfate, a highly reflective material that is key to cooling capabilities of this paint. When engineering the paint, researchers incorporated barium sulfate in the form of particles of various sizes that encourage the light to scatter when it hits the surface, meaning it doesn't just beam right back into your eyes and make it hard to see. That's how they overcame that reflection. Isn't that something?
Yeah, makes sense because obviously if you wanted to reflect 100% of the sunlight, you would just put up a mirror. But mirrors everywhere wouldn't be very practical. That would be completely disorientating to humans. So, but yeah, this just looks like super white paint. So perfect.
Yeah. And in the stories that I saw both on TV, I did see that Today Show story and little articles I read that came out just this past week. Reflecting this or talking about this technology, one of the things they did that I thought was good, but also kind of not realistic, is they said, well, okay, this is great. So how much paint would we need to solve climate warming? Well, the estimates are like 139 billion gallons of this super duper white paint. And there's all these discussions and arguments about we'd have to paint the entire surface of the United States from sea to sea in order to end global warming. Well, I'm not going to delve into this in too much more detail. You can come out to the show notes and see an article or see a sub article about this if you wish. I think the point you just made, and we've made together so many times before, it is not just one thing that's going to solve climate change. Let's have solar panels over water canals. Let's have, on and on and on. Let's have this paint where it makes sense and where you can deploy
Let's have carbon scrubbers in the middle of nowhere. Let's have, fusion reactors in places. Yeah, Ralph, it's the trend that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's having major freight ships have sails again, like we did in antiquity. It's all these things, friends. It's a combination that's going to fight the war against climate change, not any one thing. So
what I like about this story is that, and obviously I don't know all the hurdles to application may have, but grow up in Florida, obviously it's a little warm there, and we always I painted the roof white ever since I was like 12 or 13, and every year we'd go up with a coat of and put a new coat of paint on, and Ralph, if you could put this highly reflective, like if you could turn this into ordinary paint that we use every single day, on people's roofs, I mean, that alone, just make it a voluntary option that's better than our previous options. And, hey, that could solve a little bit in itself. Just having these options is more than what we had before. So it's still very, very cool. And, the video that is linked in one of the articles really highlights that this stuff does act just like paint. It's not like a film. It's not something really unusable. It's just paint. It's just really, really reflective paint. Really good paint. So makes sense.
I think it's great. And just imagine in your mind the millions upon millions of flat roofed warehouses, flat roof schools, flat roof shopping centers, on and on and on. May not work for my house, which has a peaked roof and has the usual kind of a tile work and so forth, but that doesn't apply there. But there's all those businesses. The school across the street from us has a flat roof. Paint wherever you can. And also, if you have solar panels on the roof, don't worry. You can paint still underneath. Every little molecule that you can get is great. Yeah.
It's just these small changes that are going to add up. And really, to tie story number 2 and 3 together, same principle for anyone who's been paying attention. This video that they linked from Purdue, the name of the article is literally Radiative Cooling Helps to Fight Climate Change. So radiative cooling in cloth form, and being able to put that on anything kind of on the go, and then radiative cooling using this paint as well. So it really goes to show that there's a lot of different ways to tackle the same issue. So story number 3, story number 4, Ralph. Let's go ahead and wrap up today's show with something just a little bit different. And this is the connection between the brain and the gut. And Ralph, I'll be honest, I've never been like much of like a holistic person. Everything kind of works together, and I'm sure it's true to some extent. I will say, the medical science that you read, and if anyone's out there is bored, chase down this rabbit hole. The connection between the gut and the brain, like everyone thinks that our brains are kind of the center of us, and we are our brains and stuff like that. More and more research kind of comes out, Ralph, that we're kind of our gut. Like our bodies have developed these big brains to help us better facilitate better food, and the thing that kind of powers us, the thing that controls us is the brain, but the thing that powers us and the brain facilitates is the gut. And this connection between the two is so important, more important than I think we're realizing year over year. So what's story number 4?
Oh, yeah. And this is kind of a medical technology related in a way. A headline here is Unraveling Connections Between the Brain and Gut. MIT, good old MIT engineers, new technology can probe the neural circuits that influence hunger, mood, and a variety of diseases. That's where the medical part of it kind of comes in. MIT News, great story by Anne Trafton. She does great work for them, by the way. I love her writing. And in the show notes, if you're lucky enough to have that or see that on your screen, you can see the device they created. We'll talk about that. We can see the 3 people who developed this. It's a collaboration, which I always like. But let's get into this. The brain and the digestive tract are in constant communication. I'm going to stop for just a second. That I didn't really know. I mean, it's a very interesting, to your point made a couple moments ago, how interesting it is that there's this kind of connection between our gut and our brain. I immediately thought of something like, I have a gut feeling that this isn't right. Well, maybe there's science based on that.
well, yeah, it's and not to belabor the point, but it's like your gut is just your gut health and your gut biome, and like when things kind of wipe out your gut biome, it's not very good. Your gut has a lot more to do with your overall health than I think people realize. And again, it's a whole rabbit hole, and we're still learning more about it. But it's important. Like this is super important for people's general health.
I agree. And so again, the brain and the digestive tract are in constant communication, relaying signals to help control feeding and other behaviors. This extensive communication network also influences our mental state and has been implicated in many neurological disorders. Wow. MIT engineers have designed a new technology for probing those connections using fibers embedded with a variety of sensors as well as light sources for optogenetic stimulation. Stand by, we'll explain. The researchers have shown that they can control neural circuits connecting the gut to the brain in mice. They can control this. Wow. Not only identify it and indicate its existence, but control and influence it, which is, we hope, all for good reasons. But time out. What is optogenetic stimulation? Genetic stimulation is a genetic technique that enables scientists to activate or inhibit the activity of specific neuron populations using light. And I give the link in the show notes here to learn more about that if you want to geek out. So in a new study, the MIT researchers demonstrated they could induce feelings of fullness, being sated, eat to feel full, or reward seeking behavior in mice by manipulating cells of the intestine. Wow. In future work, they hope to explore some of the correlations that have been observed between digestive health, and neurological conditions such as autism and Parkinson's disease. What? Wow.
And really, I found this other article, saying that scientists suspect changes in the balance may play a role in, like you said, autism, spectrum disorders, anxiety, depression, and chronic pain. Like, there's a lot, there's a lot to benefit from research like this.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, this is why I love this article. So here's what one of the researchers in the team had to say. Quote, "The exciting thing here is that we now have a technology that can drive gut function and behaviors such as feeding. More importantly, we have the ability to start accessing the crosstalk between the gut and the brain with the millisecond precision of optogenetics," again, stimulation by light. As part of the center's work, the team set out to probe the signals that pass between the brain and the nervous system of the gut, also called the enteric, E-N-T-E-R-I-C, nervous system. Sensory cells in the gut influence hunger and the feeling of fullness via both the neuronal communication, neuron or nerve-related, and hormone release. Untangling these hormonal and neural effects has been difficult because there hasn't been a good way to rapidly measure the neuronal signals, which occur within milliseconds. Okay, that was the problem. But neuronal, by the way, means relating to neuron or neurons. And a neuron is a type of cell that receives and sends messages from the body to the brain and back to the body. Now, as one researcher put it, quote, to be able to perform gut optogenetics and then measure the effects on brain function and behavior, which requires millisecond precision, we needed a device that didn't exist. So we decided to make it. The electronic interface that the researchers designed consists of flexible fibers that can carry out a variety of functions and can be inserted into the organs of interest, into the intestine, for example. To create the fibers, the researchers used a technique called thermal drawing, which allowed them to create polymer filaments about as thin as a human hair that can be embedded with electrodes and temperature sensors. The size of this, the minuscule size of this is mind-blowing. And then in the show notes, if you want to dig into what thermal drawing is, which is really geeky, I've got a link there and a little explanation. You can dig into that at your heart's content when you get the show notes. Going on here, the filaments, and think like size of a human hair, these filaments also carry microscale light-emitting devices that can be used to optogenetically stimulate cells with, I love this part, with microfluidic channels that can be used to deliver drugs. The range of what they've come up with is really something to think about.
And like the more that you kind of describe this device that they created, the more the picture that we're all looking at kind of makes more sense with these little channels that you can see within the fiber. Right. And like this is such a good, and knowing that this is the size of a human hair, this is such a good image to demonstrate everything that they're talking about.
Oh yeah, that's exactly right. But wait. There's more. It gets better. The fibers are also designed so that they can be controlled wirelessly using an external control circuit that can be temporarily affixed to the animal, the test animal, mice in this case, I'm sure, during an experiment. Now, using this interface, the researchers performed a series of experiments to show that they could influence behavior through manipulation of the gut as well as the brain. Wow. The researchers now plan to use this interface to study neurological conditions that are believed to have gut-brain connection. For example, or for instance, studies have shown that autistic children are far more likely than their peers to be diagnosed with gastrointestinal dysfunction, while anxiety and irritable bowel syndrome share genetic risks. So there's your link to human medicine that's possibly very, very encouraging.
Yeah. It really goes to show that, when you talk about like a cure for autism or, any of these really, more severe, autism diseases that really debilitate people, like you always think, maybe there's going to be, like something in the brain that we can do. Maybe there's some kind of drug we can give them, but anything that doesn't involve the gut biome and the gut bacteria, wouldn't be a complete treatment. So, it's all learning about that connection and being able to, I guess at this stage, understand it. And then we can potentially move on to, correcting it. So there you go. Story number 4 was very, very fun. In fact, they're all very fun, They really did, again, Ralph, highlight what you do here, which is, things are happening, even if we aren't really paying attention to it. And, be it climate change, be it medicine, be it, space travel, we got a lot of stuff going on, and there's stuff to be hopeful for. So, Ralph, I want to thank you for coming on every single Friday with all these fun stories. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to find out more, Ralph gave a lot of great links and a lot of great background in the show notes that we didn't include here on the program. So, computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything. At the top, we have a button, just says Ralph Bond. It's his segments, all of his segments and show notes. You can find them right there. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, have a great one. Have a great weekend. Do something fun. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.